working. It's working. Yay. And about this, it works. Woo! Hello. Hello. My name is Henrik, and I represent the Scrolls art team together with Mattis. Yeah, and the game. We will try to explain what we are doing. We don't know what we're doing all the time, so we'll see what happens.
It will be a very self-deprecating panel, perhaps.
So if we just quickly go from the beginning.
Primarily what? Something very, very interesting about how sometimes another voice comes on. Obvious.
Great. I make sure the servers are up. I do the bash.
This
Down, upload it to.
Stop talking.
We'll just have to live with that. It's just gonna be, our friendly neighborhood ghost speaking through the speakers. So yes, we want to take you through the creation of the art of Scrolls. Like when we make the art, there's a process, and the people who play Scrolls, they only see the end result. So we are here to see, let you see a little bit of what happens before everything is finished, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah. So the process was, in the beginning, we had to ask ourselves the question, what do we draw? That was not an obvious thing for us. So we had heard of this world of building. So we had a go at that. And we quickly realized that if you spend a week trying to build a world, you will maybe get a few sketches and a few lines about a tiny percentage of what makes a world. So we had to figure out what parts do we need. And since we're making a collectible card game, we basically need broad strokes. We need freedom to do a lot of concepts and characters, and we're going to keep building and keep adding. So we need freedom to do a lot of stuff. We don't know everything that we will do in a few years' time. So we try to define the framework. We already knew from the start that there is existing game design, which is the resources that you use to play the scrolls in the game. So that kind of became our starting point. We had a lot of talk, me, Mattis, and John Boy, who's the third member or actually the first member of the art team, about what we wanted these things to be and what kind of fantasy we wanted to build. And we had a lot of ideas about what we did not want to build.
Yeah. First draft of Scrolls.
About 125,000.
Yeah, what he said. He basically that's
5,000.
in a few words. That's what I was going to say. So the first time, the first draft of Scrolls. Yeah, let's just not use this at all. I think it's some kind of wireless thing, perhaps. It's very interesting, actually. It makes for more of an art performance than an art presentation. In the first draft of Scrolls, we had the whole fantasy shebang. We had elves, goblins, all the races that the Tolkien-esque races. And maybe some of you will be disappointed by that, but we kind of stripped all of that away because we have a big case of hubris, and we really think I don't know, we think we can do things.
Then we go prove ourselves that we can.
Yeah. So we have grand illusions of that we can actually make things that are creative and unique. So we decided to try to strip away these races, and then we were left with a big huge blank page, and we didn't really know didn't really know what to make. All we knew was that we had a bunch, like, you know, the scrolls resources, energy, growth, order, and decay. I'll talk about that as well. If there's someone who's interested, who has actually played scrolls and knows about it. I see one guy here. Okay, you'll have it. You're in for a bit of a treat, I guess. But so we had those, and we had to define those. So the first thing we had to do was go through them. Like we started thinking like they are some kind of factions. They have a different kind of gameplay. We had to work on that in parallel with the visuals, and then we had to come up with like what they are. Like for this for example, this image is energy. It's a sketch. It's not something that's used in game really, but like this landscape picture has actually shaped our like idea of what energy is.
Yeah, and once you strip away the elves and the goblins and the dwarves and all the things we've seen before, what we basically had left was ordinary humans, and we felt that it was a good starting point. So we wanted to try to define how does the humans in this world look. It is still fantasy, so we want more than just
when
boring
you're walking around with the zombies in relation. So using that system, we then tied into it. Wow.
Shut up!
AI, once it detects you, just starts sprinting at you. And the first time it happens, you're like, wait a second, I thought zombies were supposed to be slow. You're like, yeah, we picked the fast zombie type for our game. So,
It's actually...
Okay, where was I? Yeah, well, humans. I completely lost my thread.
You will have to define the look of the humans.
Yeah. So how does the humans look in as they relate to these four resources? We made I drew a map to try to make sense of this for myself. As you can see, it's a mutation of Europe, basically.
You see how it says Elven Court, goblins, that kind of thing,
yeah.
Before we decided to do away with them.
Also, we tried in this way early to build a world, and I think it has helped us to have a common view of stuff. What we did with the humans after this was to find reference materials that suited the climates they're in. You see, these broad strokes in a world means basically climate zones. Yeah, references.
Yes, just one of the places we started. We looked at actual like actual people from the earth where we live, and the way that they actually look very fantasy-like, and just try to get inspiration from this. And like just mostly, I mean, we're not actually trying to make something really deep here. We're just trying to find out looks for figures on a board board game. So it's all basically just we try to draw inspiration from somewhere else. Maybe we didn't. I mean, maybe it doesn't even show in the game that much, like that we have actually looked at this kind of reference material. But it's it's how we work, and that's what we're here to tell you. So, setting the theme, yeah, energy, growth, order, decay, that kind of thing. And then, yeah, the creation of the characters, I guess.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. So I point out that we are aware that this is the starting, we're just starting out with this world. So we set out to make the humans as a baseline. And the downside of that is that now it's a game with only humans, and it's not much fantasy. It looks like a weird mix of medieval, our world. But we'll get there. We have really started to experiment and try to find what are the other more fantasy-esque parts of our world. So keeping in mind, we're trying to avoid the worst fantasy tropes. And sometimes we can do that, sometimes we fail.
Yeah. So let's go into the process of creating a character in the game, because I think that might be interesting. So basically, easy enough. And I can talk about the concept as well, because I think that's that's part of the whole process. Let's see here. So first of all, we make a sketch. This is a very, very vague sketch. I'll just duplicate it so it shows up on itself. So this is a man from the growth people. We tried to make some kind of because growth, you start thinking about nature grows. It's one of the most growthy things. So yeah, that's a question. They do look a bit Nordic, yes, because we tried to kind of dig where we stand. And like lots of, in fantasy it's quite popular to make Nordic kinds of tribes, people. And yeah, Vikings. Vikings are very popular as a fantasy trope, or like just storybook trope. And we're like, well, we maybe don't quite want to make Vikings, but the whole Nordic thing, I think we have, we live more in it. That, like we've actually learned about it, maybe a bit more in school, maybe we're just naturally inclined to be a bit interested in it because we are Nordic. So whether or not, if it's our hubris showing up again, we think maybe we can make an interesting take of the Nordic people. So that's the kinfolk in Scrolls, which are a bit of a, like they're a peculiar mix between a shamanistic people and some kind of Viking-like warrior people. So we try to like put more fur and feathers on them, and like that kind of weird totem, not weird, but totem imagery, like show that they are very connected to the naturalistic world somehow. And so basically what this guy is, he's inspired by the old Norse trope of the Viking who he wants to die in honorable battle to come to Valhalla, where he can, drink meat and fight for the rest of his afterlife, which is of course every hard-hearted warrior's dream. So to make it look like he doesn't mind dying, he's very old. That's part of the concept, and also because the long beard animates very well. Yes.
Do you always make the sketch on the computer directly? Never on paper?
No, I sketch a lot on paper. There's actually a bunch of stuff I would have wanted to show a bunch of different sketches, but they're not scanned and they're all on paper. Actually, in the Museum of Mojang, there's one Scrolls big picture frame with sketches in it. And that's kind of, a good example, because they are the actual sketches, they're not copies. Literally just swiped them from my table and from Jugpo's and Henrik's table, just swiped a bunch of pictures, like, we're gonna use them for packs, and now they're here. So, those are actually a good example. You should go look at them, because that's mostly where the creative process happens. Lots of stuff on paper. I really need to make a mental note to scan more things, so we can put it up for people to see. So, but when we make a character, there was a sketch. I think there's actually the final sketch, or one sketch of this guy on there in the frame. So that's even more appropriate. Here he is adapted for standing on the playing field, so he's in a bit of perspective with his legs and everything, so it's going to fit well on the playing stage. Drawing a bit of poses. The way we animate this is that we cut them up, and then we move the limbs, the parts in Flash, and then we export them through a complicated process I won't be talking about. Because I don't know it. It's a program that Aaron scripted. Thank you very much, So we draw a bunch of different poses. Usually not this much. We've become very good at saving time in this process. So a different bunch of poses that we are going to use and move around until they feel good, and then we go start with the line art. Oh yes, of course. Here it is. So the first thing to do is to make line art, and because we want a clean kind of feel to the characters, a process that is easy, and mostly a process that different artists are going to work on this game. So Junkboy tried to set the style, and he's the person who invented this process. Because lots of different people are going to work on the game, we need to have a step-by-step process that everyone follows and does it the same way. Because if we would like shape the characters in our own kind of way, like everyone has habits and preferences, and if they start to mix, then eventually we might end up with all the characters looking very different. So this is a process designed. Yeah.
They still do look different. It's not fail-safe, just if I make not so much detail and Mattis makes a lot of detail, they'll still look like they're from two different games. It happens. We're learning.
Yeah, but it happens less than it would have otherwise. We definitely draw different. Like you can see that in the card art, that some scrolls do look very different from each other in the card art. And that's fine. We've decided that that's just an interesting thing, like to have different kinds of art on the cards. But on the playing field, we want things to look a bit homogeneous. So the first step is to make the line art. And I go over the sketch. You can see that they line up perfectly. So I just paint over it with a single brush, no transparency at all, just complete black lines. And then we color them. Oh, of course I shouldn't have moved it. So then I color it in. We add color to it. So then it starts looking nice. And then we make a shadow layer. So basically, you can see it here, that there's a layer that's, we paint only shadow. We use the multiply blending mode in Photoshop because it creates very nice colors when it lies over other colors. It creates very nice shadow. So in that way we create form because it's very flat like this. So we paint this in like this, and then the final step is to, I'm really going through the exact process here because I just think that's interesting. We decrease the transparency of the lines so that everything becomes a bit smoother, and then we fill back in some of the black lines to make the shadow pop even more. So that's the creation of the basic creation of a unit in Scrolls, and then of course we have to do it with all the other poses. So that's what we do, and then the last step and the most boring step. So I will definitely not do it live for you because you would just see me swear. Of course, some people think that kind of thing is entertaining as well. But what happens here is that, see if there's an auto select. Let's turn it on. So what we do here to make the thing animatable is that we just split it up in a whole. We cut it up in a whole bunch of layers. Like the beard is cut up in 3 parts, so we can make it waggle a bit when he runs.
And at this point, all the layers are collapsed.
Yeah, we flatten all the layers into a flat image, and we cut them up. And then, where the cuts happen, of course, there's like if you start spinning them around, start animating them. I can actually show exactly what it looks like, because we have to. There's another step. I thought I was done with this, and then I realized that I wasn't, and that's good because then I can demonstrate to you exactly how it looks. Because
this guy is not in the game yet.
no, this is a Decay character. Maybe you saw that. It's not in the game. It's it's a zombie, but we don't want to call it a zombie because, you know, we're so different. We, at the Scrolls team, we don't make zombies, we make things that look exactly like a zombie with a mask on. See, he's pretending to not be a zombie, not even he thinks he's a zombie. So, the thing that happens, actually, it's just everything under this, and hide everything. Taking time, of course. So, as you can see here, the arm, like when we cut them up, like this kind of, you see that there's a big cut here, like a big hole. And what happens is that when we animate it later in Flash, and I can actually show you an approximation of how the animation is done as well. Like we just take the parts and rotate them around. And like you can see here, like a big hole appears. So the thing we have to do then is that we have to go through all of these parts, and I can really kind of do this with the touchpad, but you know, I'm a bit ambitious. Ambitious is a word I've been looking for a long time. So what we have to do, basically, is that we have to paint in all the holes, like fill in all the holes by painting like this. But not with a touchpad. No, actually, this is the creation of Scrolls with a touchpad and everything. It takes a long time. So that's the final step. I said I wasn't going to do it for you, but then I did. So that's the most boring part. I swear about it a lot. I'm often very happy when Henrik does it, like a character for me, and then he throws it at me because Henrik doesn't like animating as much. So he throws it. He does the cut up, which I hate, and then he throws it at me and just says, "Go animate this," and I like animating, so then I animate stuff. So that's the whole process. After that, we have to import it into Flash, and the animation there, it's like ragdoll, not ragdoll, it's like just paper doll animation, like things just, we can rotate things and move them. It's a quite easy process.
It's not only because I don't like animation, it's also because I really hate Flash. It's an awful program. But the main benefit is that Mattis is an animation genius. So perhaps he can show us a bit of his, what do you call it? Frame-by-frame animation,
yes.
Traditional animation that we use for the effects. Because that's like, it's mind-blowing. I don't know how he does it. I guess he doesn't know either.
The trick is to draw many pictures after each other, and then you show them after each other. It becomes an animation. I wish I had my... Yeah, it's very simple. I don't understand the whole not understanding part of it. It's, you know, it's easy. It's actually not that easy, but it's very fun. You should all try it out. If you like drawing, you should probably try animation as well. Dropbox, yes, of course. Scroll sort. This is the Dropbox we work in also, like just showing you the stuff we work with every day. Like here are actually all the art assets of Scrolls.
The innermost corporate secrets of the Scrolls team.
Exactly.
Bunch of folders.
Bunch of folders. This is where the magic happens. Badly named files everywhere. No file naming conventions at all. Everything just has names, as you can see. Let's show the explosion. I actually showed this the last time I did the Las Vegas MineCon. I did show this animation, but it wasn't done then. Now it's done. Woohoo! Let's actually show it at 50% size. So I decided, because when I joined the Scrolls team, they didn't have any effect animations, and I was hired mostly because they thought they wanted someone who felt comfortable with animation. So they were like, well, how are we going to do the effect animations? I was like, we probably definitely need entirely hand-drawn animation. I think that'll be the best, even though it's much more time-consuming and everything's just like a big prestige project of mine. It's like, let's just, you know, do it. Because it's kind of, you know, hand animation is kind of disappearing from games, or actually like some indies. It's one of those indie things. Like when when it disappears more and more from like the corporate game, well, we are a corporation as well, but you know, the big like AAA game studio world, like when a thing disappears from there, it usually starts appearing in like the more independent gaming company world. And it's the same case with hand-drawn animation. This is actually, this explosion animation is, I don't know why my program is in Japanese. I actually did, you know, I didn't set it to that. It just decided to surprise me by being in Japanese today. So, yeah. It starts out as a huge blob, which is something I learned from arcade games, Japanese arcade games as well, like Metal Slug. They always do this thing, like they have this epileptic little blob that appears like for a split second. You don't think about it, but just like your eye suddenly goes there, like, oh, there's a flash. It's very interesting. The black before is just to make the white even more overpowering. It's not very nice to people who are epileptic actually. I don't know why Japanese people don't like epileptic people. So I can't really show the process of drawing this, but actually, you know, this is all hand drawn. I use a process with this as well. You know, I sketch in like large shapes and blobs, but then I detail it more and more. But yes, this explosion, what happens is just drawn entirely, hand drawn frame by frame. This is actually a pixeling program. Like you're supposed to work in this kind of resolution, but since computers are so strong nowadays, I can just, you know, zoom out, just do it extra large, and then when we put it in Photoshop, we just resize it a bit, and it becomes very smooth. So, and then we put a lot of layer effects on it in Photoshop as well to make it, you know, smoother, have more like gradients on the color cells and that kind of thing. But this is, you know, this is the process of making a scrolls animation, and I'm the only one who does it as well. It kind of fell on me to do all of the animations, but I'm fine with that. I like that. So I'm very proud of this one. I think it's huge.
How long do you spend on those?
Weeks. Well, I don't do all of them like this. You know, this is very reusable. Although I have made like 4 different explosions because I think it's fun. But you know, this kind of animation is actually very reusable. Even if I spend a week on it, you know, we can save other weeks' work by just reusing the same explosion again and again. Let's see if there are other, like there are much different and very much more simple kind of animations. Oh God, why is this here? Oh, this is hard to. This is actually not being implemented yet, but Aaron expressed interest in. This is one of the worst features of this program, I think. Okay, so there we go. You've been freed. Now don't escape. This is actually an effect I was thinking about using when someone hits with a sword or a bladed weapon. It would, you know, on the character it would do this little nice animation. And then there's another one. This is actually the normal hit animation nowadays. Like when something hits something else, this is the thing that pops up. And these animations are very needed in the game, I think, because if they're not there, something feels severely lacking. Like in Skyrim, for example. Like how, or a lot of modern games, like when you swing the sword around, you see people go like, ooh, but it's much easier if you make it more abstraction, more cartoony, and you do these like little explosions of motion, like abstractions. Like this is the abstraction of a hit. It's not actually, it doesn't look like that in real life, but it kind of feels like that. Yeah?
It has 2 steps.
It has what?
It has 2 steps. It makes it a little bit cooler.
Yeah, it does make it a little bit cooler. I really do agree on this. Because idle def and idle def X. I have no idea why one is X. Let's go for the X one, because I think that sounds much cooler. It's apparently a very big file. You know. Maybe it's the X that just makes it. Now it broke. It broke the program. Close it. Close it. Yeah, we should show some product. Is there anything here? I just want to know if there's anything. I really need to make more. That's the one I was trying to show, but it wouldn't want to show up. So I'll just show the slime explosion as well. I think that one is kind of fun. We make a lot of dirty jokes about it in the office. It's very.
It's one of the first.
Slimy and splashy. Yeah, it's one of the first ones. Let's see here. This because it's Jacob's fault that this exists in the first place, I think, because he's the person who invented the catapult of goo.
Yeah.
It's like, so this is how, you know, how concepts from game design and like little details suddenly turn into like, of course I had to make a goo explosion animation. It's also in the game, the catapult of goo. It's still there. Is it still called catapult of goo?
I think so.
I think so. It never left the game. We always thought it was a hugely silly thing, so we decided to keep it, of course. So this is the animation, the starting animation I made for it when it explodes. It's also entirely hand drawn. I drew all the drops because I just think something interesting happens when the human hand goes through everything. I don't know if it just appeals to me because I made it. That would be embarrassing. But I also I think something magical happens between how a human mind, I see things that move and then I try to recreate it and I make mistakes, but those mistakes are very human mistakes and like errors that a human would make. And I think that subconsciously appeals to other humans because their brain there's more appeal to human kinds of mistakes because we subconsciously like flawed things that are flawed in a way that humans understand.
How many frames in something like that? How many frames in that explosion?
Oh, I can just look at it. Oh, but this is the wrong one. Was never used in the game. Was it Slime Explode Core 1, the one I just watched, I think? Now it has to load everything again, of course. If I was a good speaker, I would fill up this time, this waiting time, but now we have to wait instead. It's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 frames. So that's the answer to your question. They're usually somewhere around like 8 and 20 frames, these animations. I like filling up like a whole bunch of, I really like to use a lot of different frames. Like high frame count is one of my flaws. I really like to overwork things. Let's look at card art.
I'd just like to add that what I hear, scientists have huge problems simulating fluid dynamics, and that's what we've been looking at. And Mattis does this in his head. I'm just saying. So we looked at the Kimfo.
Yeah.
What's beautiful? The old guy.
Oh, yeah.
So and we looked at the Frostbeard guy. We looked at the part that's on the board, and before he gets to the board, he's on a scroll, and the scrolls have art. So let's just look through this. I don't have anything smart to say about this. This is they're small pictures. You want to focus on something simple that is readable, convey some kind of feeling or action or something that's in line with the resource it's in and in line with what it does. So if you compare us to other card games, this is one of the areas where we trying to be effective. Look at Magic the Gathering. They have huge expenses. They hire the best and the brightest of fantasy artists and let them spend weeks on pieces. But that's really impressive, and it's also not possible for us So if you look closer at these pieces, they're basically not much more than sketches, most of them. But we have identified that this game will stand and fall with the amount of scrolls that is in the game. So we really need to have some kind of pace to it. Which means we'll let Mattis do animation, a single animation for 2 weeks, and I do card art, 20 card arts in a week. Or something like that.
Yeah, that was very true.
Yeah, it goes up. It is also art, so you have to follow your heart sometimes, and if I get really inspired by something, I'll spend more time on it. Like the...
Which one?
The one with the grizzly raft.
Oh yeah. Oh, I like that. So it's more slowly because it's more nice.
So here I broke all the rules. I consciously didn't bother with the formula of sketch, line art, color, shadow layer. So I just went from the sketch and painted over it because it felt right. I have to do that sometimes. This is also from the previously not yet released Decay Resource. So we have been working very hard on the Decay Resource. So it will be released very soon after the beta release.
Were you supposed to tell us of the Decay Resource yet, or were we not supposed to now keep this for?
I'm sorry, I didn't get it. Do we get to talk about it? Is it a secret? Are you allowed to talk about it?
Could you please just whisper when you talk about it? It's known. It was in the first builds. There were 4 resources from the start. So when I started at Mojang, I just looked at Jacob and I said, seriously, you can't spread our resources over 4 resources. That it won't be enough in each of them. So okay, we'll just hold off on one of them. So the plan was always to have 4, and we'll have that soon.
I think this is another DK card that is soon to be released. I also look at some of the DK creatures later, because I think that's interesting. This is a growth card, yeah, of course. We're introducing some stuff. I won't talk too much about it, but there are rats. They're both in growth and decay, because that feels like, you know, the cycle of rats. They reproduce very growthy, and then they spread disease, which is very decay-y. So the rats, they have found a very natural place in between growth and decay. Rat King. Is he actually the Rat King, or is the Rat King the thing he's holding? Oh yeah.
That's ambiguous.
That's ambiguous. Of course. Now I remember what the card is about. You'll see it later if you keep playing the game. Is there another card we want to look at? I mean, I wish. Sadly, the card of thumbnails are so freaking small. It's like, woohoo! What a nice picture. Now, of course, if I zoom in on one of them, resizes again because I'm using Windows Photo Viewer, which is not maybe the best idea.
They're meant to be small.
They're meant to be small, so I mean, this is how they look in the game, so I'll just, you know. Henrik made also all of these because he's a machine. He's so fast. Seriously, I don't even know. Like, sometimes I do a very simple sketch over the first 3 hours of a day because I'm trying to get it right, and then I look at Henrik and it's like, whereas I was making a bunch of like lines and oh, now my lines are done. When I was making a bunch of lines the first hour, I see Henrik is also making a bunch of lines. I'm like, oh yeah, it's going well, and then we go to lunch, and I'm like, yeah, my lines are done, and Henrik has started like with the highlights of the color. I'm like, what? He's like, well, yeah, I don't even know.
It's a question of not having pride. Just settle for the first thing that shows up.
I think that's a very, very, very good thing to have. I think scrolls wouldn't be made, we wouldn't actually be able to make scrolls and have graphics if we didn't have Henrik. It's master of efficiency. It's so good. So, before we go to questions, maybe just talk a little bit about Decay.
Yes.
Because, you know, this is streamed, and I think there are a bunch of guys on the stream who are really waiting for something on Decay from the graphic artists. So I'll just talk a little about the concept of Decay, because, you know, we did that with growth, energy, and order, but those are already in the game, so they'll have to speak for themselves right now. Like kind of shamanistic Vikings, some kind of subverted medieval troops, and some weird desert, like rogue people with lots of cannons and guns, but very, very medieval ones, or not, I don't know, low technological, like they've discovered gunpowder, and they decided that we don't need to discover anymore scientifically, so they just built a lot of things that use gunpowder. And then there's Decay. And Decay, I mean, it's a word that you realize, okay, it's the death color, it has zombies in it, like, I don't know, liches, necromancers, gargoyles and vampires. And as usual, like, we really try to, we're too ambitious, so we really want to make a different kind of concept. So, for Decay, I really wanted, like, picture I made for looking nice. Like, as we did with all the other colors, like, when it comes to supernatural beasts and everything, we're just kind of, as long as we invent something that feels a little bit personal and more unique, we're basically allowed to make almost whatever. We haven't done that a lot yet because we're still trying to introduce the humans of the Scrolls world. But right now, what was I talking about? I was talking about the humans. So right now we're focusing on, you know, the humans in the worlds of Scrolls. Who are they? Like, how do they live? So this is kind of like the people. What this is like, it's like a big ruin. I imagine like a big Inca or Aztec kind of ruin of like an ancient civilization, and people living on top of it. And that's kind of, they live in some kind of cursed swamp. I don't know if it's cursed, but it's a place that's kind of hard to live in. I wanted people who use necromancy in a way that's not only for some kind of, you know, stereotypical evil reasons, like, I'm so evil, I will raise an army of the dead, because the dead are more disgusting than living people, and it fits me, because I am evil. So, the people of Decay, I invented a name for the place they live in, also the swamp. I call it the Illmire, which is a very silly name, because I just combine ill and mire. I know it's Illmire, but I spell it with only one L, so now it feels more like a true name. It's also kind of how we do it in the Scrolls team, like the kinfolk, it's like it's not folk, they're kin with each other. I don't know. It's just, we try to come up with new words that actually have some kind of English meaning if you look at the words, because it's just like the Nuzahug people. It's like, what does Nuzahug mean? I don't know, we just came up with it because we need to name a card. And we want to avoid that. I don't know if it will actually be, you know, if it actually has any significance, but we really want to do that. It's like how we really want to operate.
Well, in the beginning we had a lot of what I call nonsense names, like the Nuzu, and that's okay. If you like fancy, if you write a fancy book, it's okay to name your places and whatever, however you like. But I kind of felt that we are going to be making a lot of scrolls, and in them there are going to be a lot of people, and we're going to be writing a lot of small pieces of text. And if we kept using nonsense names all the time, nothing would make sense. We wouldn't know what anything was. So I felt I've been championing the use of words that seem to have meaning. About that.
Yeah, it makes everything instantly flavorful. You hear Illmeyer, it's like, maybe that means Illmeyer, like illness, Meyer of illness, I don't know. And that maybe gives you, without you having to like read a book about it, you instantly know it's about like kinfolk. Folk who care about their kin, I guess. They live in the countryside, up in the north, you know. So flavorful words, that's something we really like. So the Decay people, they are people born from my desire to explain why people would invent necromancy. And these are people who they live in a place that is so harsh and it's so hard to survive where they live that they actually have to. They can't prevent their people from dying. People actually die because it's such a harsh environment that instead of actually curing people, eventually, if they want, to actually have a population, they really have to use necromancy. So they are my idea was willful zombies. Or like, it's not showing through in the game a lot, and I'm fine with that. It's just that decay, death, necromancy is evil. Like, it's not good. Like, if you really have to revive the dead, or like raise the dead as non-living people, then you're not in a good spot. So it's not a good thing, but I wanted to make them truly neutral. Like, they're neither good or evil. They're actually somewhere in between, very much. So card-wise, is there a question? Yeah, the question mark. It's named with the question mark because all of these other creatures are actually now, tied to scrolls already. Because I spent some time looking through all the Decay creatures, trying to make a final pass on them because I had so many flavorful ideas about what I wanted Decay to be. So they just told me, like, just look at the cards and see if you like them. And then I came up with names for all of them and sketched all of them. We actually don't really do it like this. This process isn't actually this thorough every time where we start out with the cards and then come up with creatures. We really want to do that all the time, and it's often we make a creature and then we have to scrap the creature because oops, the rules didn't work. We don't like the rules, and oh, now we have this kind of rule. Let's just use the graphics for this guy instead. And sometimes we have like concept things that we're not sure if we're ever going to use these, but let's make graphics for them. It's easier to test that way. This is one of the first times where all the sketches are done before the creation of creatures started. So yes, what to say? I can talk briefly about all the creatures. The Viscerous Sage is a dude who he's a sage. He can see into the future or whatever. He does it by looking at, well, Viscera. He looks at intestines of things, and he scries in intestines. He's disgusting. He's awfully disgusting. These people are all disgusting. The Black Bear is a disgusting fellow, as you can see. Like, his arm is not all right. It's not good, actually. I won't explain the rules of the cards, like, exactly, but he dies slowly all the time. Like, you put him out, he's going to take damage automatically. When he dies, everyone on the same row as him, both friend and foe, become poisoned because, that can't be good. Whatever he's got, it's contagious. You can see it. Rot Eater, almost like in all strategy and card games and that kind of thing, like, slimes are the perfect kind of enemy. They tend to be enemies, but creatures. The perfect kind of creature that grows over time, like this one. I don't know if you can see it. He has a bunch of bones in his belly. It's trying to tie gameplay and graphics together. He has a bunch of bones in his belly because gameplay-wise, every time someone around him dies, he becomes stronger, or he. Maybe it's a she. I think it's an it actually. It becomes stronger every time something around it dies, and it's called Rot Eater. So you piece it together in your mind. I mean, the rules are very sterile. Like it actually says, whenever an entity next to this entity disappears from the board by certain circumstances, this one has numbers that go up. Like that's actually what, and gameplay-wise, like mechanics-wise, that is what happens. And we put words on it and flavors on it, and we give it a name that means something, and try to put it and then you piece it together by looking at it, and then you're like, yeah, of course, he eats the remains of the people around him that die, and then he becomes stronger. So that's, I hope you can gain some insight in that there's actually like a process where you have to present things in a manner that, like, you have to teach people, like put the right information in the right place so people can teach themselves what they're actually looking at. And it's the same with the husk. The husk actually doesn't do anything. It's just very slow. It's a bit strong. It's a zombie. And the witch doctor here, he helps dead people by making them walk again. Not necessarily with a lot of, consciousness left. Not with a lot of life less either. I mean, the witch doctor usually makes people dead to cure them because their bodies are easier to modify that way. So, yeah, he has the same kind of thing. If someone human next to him dies, they turn into a husk. I like to call the husk husky. It feels nice and that kind of thing. I'm not going to explain everyone, even though I did it with the upper row. These are just old people. I like the fact that you can really tell if the old guy is a zombie or person. He looks kind of like an old nice monk from somewhere like East Asia. Like old nice monk, and he doesn't really have a nose, doesn't really have lips either. He looks pretty dead, but he doesn't look like slow, evil zombie who wants to eat your brains. It just looks like he's not quite living anymore. He just keeps walking around. It's, that's the kind of flavor I wanted, like this kind of weird flavor. With Decay, I wanted to evoke weird. I wanted people who, like, you don't know if they're between life or death. Like, I can also show that with the coloring of the coloring of the creatures. It's easy to tell about the process with the Decay because, like, how we create things, because I did it, so it's easy for me to talk about. I have a lot of insight in my brain because I'm the one who has it. This process, it's very fresh in my memory because this is what I was doing before I didn't prepare this panel very much because I was busy making scrolls, characters, like actually drawing these things. Has anyone here seen the movie Akira? Yeah, I was, Tetsuo. It's a homage. It's intentional. I'm pretty sure someone would say I ripped them off. I guess that's the term for it. But as you can see, I mean, this guy, as I said, he dies slowly. You put him out on the board, he doesn't really survive even if he isn't attacked. He just dies slowly because, having an arm like that can't be good. Can't be good for you. So, yeah. I would just want to talk about the coloring of the Decay characters. Yeah, the colors show up pretty well. Like, they don't look very alive, especially like with the blue kind of shadows that we use. It makes them look like, this is kind of, he still doesn't look very healthy, but when you add on the blue shadows, it really like drives the point home that these people don't live in good conditions. So even if you don't know that, I'm very, very interested in seeing the initial reactions of people playing with the Decay creatures without knowing anything, because I have this very rich backstory to them. And people who don't know that, I really want to know what they take from it when they see the Decay characters for the first time. They're like, hey, they don't make sense. I don't know if they're evil or good. they suck. that tends to happen.
That's kind of an interesting part. We have the limited bandwidth of telling you the story about these guys. We have a picture, and we have a small line of text at the bottom, and then we have the guy on the board. That's not a lot of bandwidth to tell a story of something. So we try to hint at it, and this we can use to our advantage. It means sometimes the hints are just hints to make it seem like there's a backstory. I'm sorry, this is the truth, naked truth. But most of the time, while we're working on it, we are making up the backstory. So we'll have the backstory, we will have the backstory. And hopefully, we're hoping that the small details we present will show something of this world in the end. I think we have a pretty common view of the world and what we want to show. But the way we show it in is kind of limited. So hopefully it will become, give people a feeling of the world rather than actual facts. That's kind of what, painting with broad strokes, we have a picture of a world in our heads, and we'll show you bits of it, and hopefully that will inspire something.
I actually think that we are, like, the time is almost exactly 2.
It is?
I think we clocked in exactly in the hour we were supposed to do. That, of course, means we can't take a lot of questions, but let's just, you know, be like 5 minutes late and then just take a bunch of questions, if we can, because that would be nice.
I wonder if you guys actually, if your creations depends on the game designs, or if you create, if you influence the gameplay.
Yeah, it very much goes back and forth. Especially with the Decay Resource, we had a better picture of what we wanted the entire resource of Decay to be about. So we wrote the rules a lot more along those lines than with the other resources. And then it goes back again to actually making the actual, then we look at the rules. So it goes back and forth all the time, and sometimes something will inspire rules, sometimes the rules will.
Yeah, but it just as a broad answer, in the Scrolls team, the graphic artists are, we are involved in making the gameplay as well. So, everyone from the Scrolls team can basically work on the gameplay, even though we make different, like, our craft is different. Some people have to write code or the game won't exist. Some people have to do art or the game won't, be visible. But then, in between that, we all together design the game and how it works.
Yes?
Since you switched from the creatures to humans, I've noticed for that we have female characters in the game. Not a lot of them, so we've seen Decay and from 9 characters, only 1 was female. And I was wondering why. Is it just because women are not
I think it's
just warriors, or is it just your issue? Like not being able to draw women as well as male characters.
Yeah, I think it's very much an issue of us being insecure and immature. And really, the easiest way to draw a warrior is to put some part of yourself in there, and imagine yourself being very muscular and cool. I think it's very immature, and I have issues with it myself. And but the thing with art is when you start sketching with a blank mind and things, sometimes you just have to follow the flow, and then you really you end up with only male characters because that just feels good. And maybe if we thought about it, we might actually because I would also like to include more female characters, definitely. So it's not. I don't have any, you know. I don't have any reason that's more than based on my own immaturity. Answering for myself.
Well, I can just say that it's also a bit like the. Also, it is that we had to wait. If we were talking about specifically the avatar system, since it's you build your character from many parts. That's quite a lot of resources. So I have started working on the female set. Like I didn't have time to make 2 sets, so I had to choose a gender. And we also
the one with a beard.
Yeah, we have a beard fetish. All of us. I'm sorry. You can buy them, you know.
Yeah.
The animation on the fluid, you chose 13 frames or 20 frames. How many iterations do you need to go to? Like you need to animate a mass that has a rise, and then it hangs and it falls. That's got a timing issue that really needs to be gotten right. You do that by eye. Is it you just choose 13 frames and decide where the mass is going to be at a particular spot in the animation?
It's I go on feel, but I have a process. So, well, I think with effects animations, you can often work more straight ahead than you would otherwise, because in animation there's like these 2 different techniques. Of course, there are a million techniques, but when it comes to the process, how you progress with your animations, you can either go straight ahead, where you just draw something and then just draw the next thing without thinking, like planning. And then there's the key framing, where you actually, you make different key points, like this is going to be here, and then somewhere in the future it's going to be here, and that kind of thing. And I use a wild mix between the 2, depending on what I feel like. But you know, if you make one drop, it's a service. You don't really have to. I think there's not a lot of work involved in making it travel through on the screen. So you can make it like 4 frames, and oh man, that's way too fast. And then you just add in the in-between frames, and you're like, 8 frames. That looks all right. Let's scrap this and try 12 frames instead. So you can feel yourself ahead very, very easily when it comes to deciding what the speed of the animation is going to be.
It can look unnatural if you make something rise too quick and fall too quick.
Yeah.
Just an eye.
It's yes, actually, I've during and while animating things, the first thing that people first animation exercise that people are suggested to try is the bouncing ball animation. Like you make a ball bounce and then you come to a stop, and that teaches you a lot about just even when the animation doesn't run, how it's spaced out. You can figure it out almost by eye, what kind of spaces you need to make things animate. And then I don't know, I think very rasterized. When it comes to motion, I can kind of do that and think about it. So I have an idea of it. So I don't know how to explain that, but I go with a lot of feeling, I guess.
You said you didn't know.
Yeah. Let's take another question. Last question, if someone has. And yeah. Card art or animations. I like the character. Yeah.
I tend to use only one layer for color, and I lock the transparency. So, but sometimes you need an extra layer for experimentation.
There's one layer of color, and then there's another layer of transparency, or transparency, shadow. And the shadow layer is different, and like it's binary, so it's there's either shadow there or complete transparency. But with that we can create a lot of different, a lot of shapes. And I think we're done. So, last words? Oh, if I have any last words? Oh well, I really don't have any last words. I hope you gained some insight into the process, and if you thought it was like, oh, that was way more simple than I thought it would be, then I'm happy that you've realized that it's not always way too hard making the graphics for games. If you thought it was way too complicated, then I'm sorry. But yes, I hope this has been, you've gained something from this. So thank you all very much for coming here and showing interest.